This is my ranking of management strategy games that I've played based purely on my personal experience. Each one is placed from masterpiece down to trash, depending on how deep the systems are and how satisfying the decision-making feels. Let's get straight into the list. Frostpunk dropped me into a frozen city where every choice felt stressful because people could die if I made the wrong decision. I liked how gathering coal, building shelters, and keeping the generator running became harder whenever the temperature suddenly changed. The law system was the strongest part because it forced me to decide between survival and basic humanity, and some choices stayed in my head long after I stopped playing. I also enjoyed the dark atmosphere, the music, and the way the city slowly grew around the generator. A few menus felt awkward during my first hours, and learning where certain tools were hidden took some patience. The scouting trips also gave me useful rewards and trade-offs. Even with that, the constant pressure and emotional decisions made Frostpunk earn a place in my masterpiece tier. Planet Coaster gave me a huge amount of freedom because I could build almost any type of theme park and shape every coaster exactly how I wanted. I spent a lot of time adjusting tracks, testing rides, changing scenery, and trying to make the park feel alive instead of just functional. I liked how simple tools slowly opened into deeper systems once I understood them better. Watching guests react to my rides made the park feel active, especially when a successful coaster attracted massive crowds. The management side was lighter than I expected since money stopped being important after several hours and some staff systems felt repetitive. Still, the creativity, customization, and satisfying park building kept me hooked for a very long time across many late-night sessions. Planet Coaster lands high in my excellent tier. Kenshi started with me getting beaten down by enemies, starving in the desert, and barely understanding how to survive, which made the slow progress feel rewarding later on. I began with almost nothing and slowly learned how to earn money through mining, trading, exploring, and avoiding fights I clearly could not win. I liked how the game never pushed me into a fixed path because I could live as a thief, mercenary, drifter, or leader of a growing squad. The massive world kept surprising me with dangerous factions, strange settlements, and random situations that could destroy hours of progress within minutes. The combat system felt rough during the early hours, and the old visuals made some areas look empty and outdated. Still, the freedom and survival systems gave me many memorable moments. Kenshi secures a spot in my excellent tier. Factorio began with mining rocks by hand and slowly turning a tiny setup into a massive automated factory filled with conveyor belts, trains, and production lines moving non-stop across the map. I liked how every new machine created another problem to solve because fixing one bottleneck usually caused trouble somewhere else in the system. Expanding the factory became addictive once I unlocked better technology and started redesigning entire sections to improve efficiency. The alien attacks also added pressure since pollution constantly pushed enemies toward my base, forcing me to balance production with defense. Some systems felt overwhelming during the early hours, especially when my layouts became messy and difficult to organize properly. Still, learning how everything connected together made each breakthrough satisfying. The scale, automation, and endless optimization easily place Factorio in my masterpiece tier. Dwarf Fortress gave me complete control over a growing colony where even the smallest mistake could destroy hours of progress in ways I never expected. I spent my early hours confused by menus, assigning jobs randomly, and trying to understand why my dwarves kept becoming angry or refusing to work properly. Once I slowly learned the systems, the game became fascinating because every fortress created strange stories through disasters, fights, relationships, and unexpected deaths. I liked how each new settlement felt connected to the same world, making failed colonies feel important instead of wasted time. The amount of detail inside the simulation was unbelievable, especially once I started managing trade, defenses, farming, and underground construction together. The learning curve was extremely brutal, and the interface remained difficult even after many hours. Dwarf Fortress goes in my excellent tier. Against the Storm kept me under constant pressure because every settlement felt like it could collapse if I stopped paying attention to resources, worker needs, or incoming storms for too long. I liked how each run forced me to adapt, since the map layouts, available buildings, and resources always changed in ways that affected my plans. Managing different species became interesting because each group wanted different services, foods, and working conditions, which made balancing the settlement harder over time. The roguelike structure also worked surprisingly well because failed runs still unlocked useful upgrades that helped future cities survive longer. Some menus and controls felt messy at first, especially while learning the large number of production systems and resources. This moves into my excellent tier. RimWorld has a dangerous planet where a few colonists had to survive raids, hunger, injuries, mental breakdowns, and disasters that could destroy the entire settlement within minutes. I liked how every character slowly developed personal stories through relationships, fights, addictions, and random events controlled by the storyteller system. Building defenses, growing food, researching technology, and preparing for attacks kept me busy because problems constantly appeared from every direction. The combat became tense whenever raiders attacked my colony, especially after stronger enemies arrived with better weapons and explosives. I also enjoyed pausing battles and planning positions carefully before things became chaotic. The learning curve felt intimidating during my first hours, and some failures were brutal to recover from. Even so, the freedom and unpredictable storytelling placed RimWorld inside my masterpiece tier without feeling repetitive anywhere. Prison Architect had me designing cells, managing guards, stopping riots, and trying to keep hundreds of dangerous prisoners under control before everything turned into complete chaos. I liked how every small decision mattered because poor layouts, weak security, or missing staff could quickly create massive problems across the prison. Building kitchens, power systems, surveillance rooms, and solitary cells made the management side feel detailed without becoming impossible to understand. I also enjoyed watching the prison slowly expand from a few basic rooms into a giant facility with patrols, checkpoints, and strict routines. The early hours felt rough because the tutorial explained some systems badly, and several menus were harder to learn than expected. Even so, solving problems during emergencies and improving the prison layout kept me invested for many long sessions. This settles strongly into my excellent tier. Noble Fates let me build a growing kingdom while also managing the personalities, ambitions, and relationships of the people living inside it. I liked how characters remembered past events because small decisions could create problems many hours later if somebody felt ignored or treated unfairly. Recruiting new citizens became interesting since every person brought different skills, opinions, and needs that changed how I managed the settlement. The option to switch between top-down management and direct character control also made the experience feel more personal than many other strategy games I have played. I enjoyed using automation systems because they reduced repetitive tasks and gave me more time to focus on expansion and survival. Some dialogue felt awkward, and several controls were harder to understand during the early hours. I'd place Noble Fates in my good tier. Timberborn placed me in a struggling beaver settlement where survival depended entirely on controlling rivers, storing water, and preparing for droughts before disaster arrived. I liked how reshaping the landscape became the main challenge, because building dams, reservoirs, and canals directly affected farming, energy production, and colony expansion. The vertical building system also made construction feel creative since I could stack structures and create layered settlements across the map. Droughts created constant tension because running out of clean water for even a short time could destroy crops and damage the colony badly. I also enjoyed experimenting with water flow and solving problems caused by toxic contamination spreading through the environment. Some larger systems became difficult to manage once the colony expanded across districts. Even with those issues, Timberborn secures a place in my excellent tier. Dyson's Sphere program is about building massive factory networks across entire planets, while conveyor belts, drones, and machines constantly moved resources between huge production systems. I liked how the automation slowly expanded from small mining setups into giant interplanetary industries, connected through space travel and advanced logistics. Building in multiple vertical layers also made factory design more satisfying because I could route belts above existing structures instead of rebuilding everything repeatedly. Unlocking new technology always felt rewarding since every upgrade opened faster production methods and larger construction possibilities across different planets. I also enjoyed flying into space and creating mining operations on distant worlds to support my growing systems. Some factory layouts became difficult to organize once production chains reached extreme sizes later in the game. This belongs in my excellent tier. Jurassic World Evolution 2 gave me the chance to manage a massive dinosaur attraction where escaped predators, storms, and broken security systems could ruin the park within minutes. I liked researching new species, designing large habitats, and slowly expanding the park with flying reptiles, aquatic creatures, and famous dinosaurs from the movies. Watching the dinosaurs interact inside their enclosures made the park feel alive, especially when aggressive animals started fighting or breaking through fences unexpectedly. I also enjoyed modifying dinosaur genetics and balancing different creature needs while keeping visitors entertained across the facility. The management systems felt lighter than I expected because guests and staff required less attention than in deeper simulation games. Some building tools also felt restrictive when creating larger parks on certain maps. Even with those problems, this earns a strong place in my great tier. Oxygen, not included, trapped me inside a collapsing underground colony where every machine, resource, and survival decision slowly created another dangerous problem somewhere else. I liked how oxygen, polluted water, heat, and toxic gases never disappeared on their own because every system in the colony constantly affected another one. Building pipes, ventilation networks, generators, and automated systems became satisfying once I finally understood how everything connected together. I also enjoyed solving long-term problems caused by my earlier mistakes, especially when poor planning started damaging food production or spreading dangerous temperatures across the base. The learning curve felt brutal during my first several colonies, and some advanced systems were extremely difficult to understand without experimentation. Even with that complexity, Oxygen Not Included absolutely belongs in my masterpiece tier after many stressful failures and near disasters. 2 Point Hospital gave me control over chaotic hospitals where patients with ridiculous illnesses constantly filled waiting rooms while I tried keeping staff, treatment rooms, and finances under control. I liked how the game slowly introduced more systems over time because managing temperature, hygiene, staff skills, and patient happiness added variety without becoming confusing. Building different rooms and improving layouts became surprisingly addictive once the hospital started growing into a large medical complex. The humor also kept the experience entertaining since many illnesses, announcements, and animations were intentionally ridiculous in the best way possible. I enjoyed adjusting hospital designs and watching everything operate more efficiently after solving long lines and treatment problems. Some objectives eventually became repetitive once I understood the main gameplay loop and management flow. 2 Point Hospital reaches my excellent tier. Manor Lords gave me the feeling of slowly growing a small medieval village into a busy settlement surrounded by farms, forests, and trading routes across beautiful landscapes. I liked how the building system avoided strict grids because every road and structure naturally shaped the town in different ways. Watching villagers move through changing seasons made the world feel alive during long sessions. The management systems were satisfying while balancing food production, trade, housing, and expansion across larger territories. I also enjoyed the realistic atmosphere, detailed visuals, and smooth performance because the game stayed stable during most of my time with it. The combat felt weaker than the city building since battles lacked tactical depth and unit movement often became awkward during fights. Replay value also started fading after several settlements. Manor Lords belongs in my excellent tier. Songs of Six turned a tiny settlement into a massive fantasy kingdom where thousands of citizens needed food, housing, religion, jobs, and protection to keep the entire society functioning properly. I liked how different races had unique needs because balancing their happiness forced me to plan the city carefully instead of expanding without thinking. Watching the population grow into huge numbers while the game still ran smoothly was surprisingly impressive during longer sessions. The large world map also added more depth since trade, warfare, and diplomacy slowly became important alongside city management. I enjoyed the atmosphere, soundtrack, and pixel art style because they gave the world a distinct personality despite the simple visuals. The tutorial felt weak, and many systems were difficult to understand without outside help or experimentation. Songs of Six settles nicely into my great tier. Going medieval had me managing a small medieval settlement where building homes, storing food, and surviving raids slowly became harder as the village expanded over time. I liked how villagers handled tasks based on priorities because it made the colony feel active without forcing me to control every small action myself. Building layered castles, underground storage rooms, and defensive walls also gave the settlement more personality during longer sessions. The survival system stayed interesting since poor planning during early seasons could create serious food and resource problems later. I also enjoyed watching the town slowly grow from a tiny camp into a large fortified community filled with farms and workshops. Combat felt a little basic because battles mostly involved positioning villagers and waiting for fights to finish automatically. It earns its place in the great tier. Planet Zoo let me create detailed wildlife parks where keeping animals healthy and comfortable became more important than simply making money from visitors. I liked designing habitats because every species needed different environments, food, enrichment items, and shelter to stay happy inside the zoo. Watching animals interact with each other made the park feel alive, especially when groups played, climbed, hunted, or relaxed around their exhibits. The building tools also gave me a huge amount of freedom since I could shape terrain, place decorations, and customize almost every section of the zoo however I wanted. I also enjoyed the conservation systems because breeding and protecting endangered animals added more meaning to expansion. Some menus felt slow during larger zoos, and animal AI occasionally behaved strangely during busy moments. Even with those issues, Planet Zoo easily stands in my excellent tier. Kerbal's space program turned failed rocket launches into some of the funniest and most satisfying moments I had in a management strategy game. I liked how every mission forced me to balance fuel, weight, engines, and staging because even small design mistakes could send the entire rocket spinning out of control. Reaching orbit for the first time felt rewarding after so many explosions and failed launches during my early hours. I also enjoyed experimenting with ridiculous spacecraft designs in sandbox mode just to see whether they would actually survive takeoff. The physics systems were deep without losing their sense of humor, and learning orbital mechanics became surprisingly addictive over time. Some construction tools felt awkward while managing staging setups during larger projects. Kerbal Space Program easily earns a place in my excellent tier. Lobotomy Corporation placed me inside a dangerous facility where managing employees and containing supernatural creatures became more stressful with every passing day. I liked how each abnormality followed different rules, because learning how to safely handle them felt like solving deadly experiments through trial and error. Watching employees slowly improve while risking insanity or death during containment work made every decision feel important. The management systems became deeper over time since I had to balance energy production, staff survival, equipment, and emergency situations happening across multiple departments. I also enjoyed the dark atmosphere, soundtrack, and strange creature designs because they gave the facility a disturbing personality, unlike other management games I have played. Some mechanics were difficult to understand during the early hours, and mistakes could punish entire runs very quickly. It reaches my great tier. Football Manager 2024 made me feel more like a real football manager than any previous entry because transfers, tactics, and player relationships demanded constant attention across every season. I liked building squads carefully since unrealistic signings became harder to complete, which made long-term rebuilding projects feel more rewarding over time. The improved match engine also helped matches feel closer to real football because player movement and attacking patterns looked much smoother than older versions I played before. I spent a huge amount of time adjusting tactics, training schedules, and set-piece routines while trying to push smaller clubs toward bigger competitions. The set-piece system became surprisingly powerful once I understood it properly, sometimes deciding entire seasons through extra goals alone. Some menus still felt overwhelming during busy periods. It secured a place in the excellent tier. Cities Skylines gave me complete control over massive cities where traffic management, zoning, public transport, and city expansion slowly became more complicated as the population exploded. I liked how easy it was to begin with a few roads and neighborhoods before eventually creating huge districts connected through highways, trains, and subway systems. Watching thousands of citizens move through the city made everything feel alive, especially once industrial areas, downtown centers, and suburbs started operating together successfully. The amount of freedom in city planning also kept me invested because I could shape every area differently depending on my ideas. I enjoyed solving traffic problems and redesigning busy intersections whenever congestion became impossible to ignore. Some systems lacked challenge since disasters and emergencies rarely created much pressure during normal gameplay. Even with that, I'd put in my excellent tier. Amazing Cultivation Simulator dropped me into a complex world where managing disciples, building sects, and chasing immortality required far more planning than I expected during my early hours. I liked how the game mixed colony management with Chinese mythology because systems like Feng Shui, cultivation paths, and elemental balance made progression feel unique compared to other strategy games. Watching disciples slowly grow stronger while expanding the sect into a powerful spiritual community became satisfying once I finally understood the mechanics properly. I also enjoyed the freedom to explore caves, trade with other sects, tame creatures, or focus completely on cultivation and survival. The atmosphere, music, and art style gave the game a distinct identity that stayed memorable throughout longer sessions. The learning curve felt overwhelming at times, especially for newer players. This fits into my good tier. Game Dev Tycoon started with me building tiny games inside a garage while trying to grow a small studio into a successful game development company over time. I liked experimenting with different genres, platforms, and themes because finding combinations that created hit games became surprisingly addictive during the early hours. Managing research points, upgrading technology, and hiring staff also gave the progression a satisfying sense of growth as the studio expanded into larger offices. I enjoyed adjusting sliders for graphics, story, sound, and gameplay systems while trying to match them with the correct genres. The simple controls and fast gameplay loop made it easy to keep playing for long sessions without much frustration. After several hours, though, the gameplay started feeling repetitive because the management systems lacked deeper, long-term variety. This drops in the mediocre tier. Rusty's retirement mostly sat quietly at the bottom of my screen, while tiny robots handled farming jobs with very little input needed from me after the first few hours. I understood the relaxing idea behind it, and I did enjoy checking in occasionally to expand the farm, unlock helpers, and place decorations around the land. The soft visuals and calm atmosphere also worked nicely, while multitasking with other games or videos in the background. The problem was that the gameplay never became deeper or more rewarding because automation removed most of the challenge very quickly. I kept waiting for new mechanics, meaningful management decisions, or stronger progression systems, but the experience stayed repetitive almost the entire time. Decoration options also felt limited once the farm became crowded with machines and clutter. This ends up in my trash tier. That's my ranking of the management strategy games I've played. Some stayed addictive for hours while others became repetitive over time. Thanks for watching.